Welcome to the Hudson School District podcast series, All Things Technology. As we gear up for a new school year, we've invited Jen Lotze from our IT department to talk about cybersecurity and offer some suggestions to create a safer digital space at home and as you and your family access the internet in public spaces. Jen, can you tell us about why it's important to talk about cybersecurity and what we are seeing on the state and national level?
Sure. So the threats are very real. And what's worse is that the threats are changing every single day. It's not just the phishing emails that we're so accustomed to seeing all the time. It's phone calls, it's text messages, it's emails, it's even those QR codes that you see on tables at restaurants. The truth is that we need to verify whatever information we're being asked for and then trust that information. We need to check the sender. We need to ask ourselves, why does this person need this information? Are they really who they say they are? Bad actors are counting on us being in a hurry, right? Like life moves really fast. We're so used to, I have to respond right away. I have to get this information out there right away. But we don't want to give in to those bad actors. So we do ourselves a favor by taking a breath, verify the information, and then provide it. So we always say in Hudson, verify, then trust. So do yourself a favor and slow down. The threats are real.
So as a parent, what are the things I should be paying attention to in my home?
So we're going to go a little bit at a higher level even than just at home. We want to think about your children just in general. So this is a really good question. And it's probably, if you hear anything from this podcast, hear this. We want to first have you start by securing your students' or your child's data. Freeze that credit. Your 5-year-old who is entering into kindergarten does not need to do anything with their credit. No one needs to be running their credit. You should go online and freeze it. The same thing is true for your high school student, your college student. It's just as easy to unfreeze someone's credit as it is to freeze it. What this does is it doesn't allow anyone else to run or use your child's credit without their knowledge. So for example, let's say your child is turning 17, they have their first job, they've saved some money, they want to buy a car. They're going to go and they're going to have to get credit for that. What we're seeing is that there have been people who have accessed children's credit from a very young age. By the time that they go to use their credit is actually gone because a bad actor came in, stole their social security number, ran up a bunch of credit cards without their knowledge, and utilized all that credit. That statute of limitations has run out because it's been so many years. But by freezing your child's credit, that means that no one can check it or use it without that frozen freeze being lifted. So I would say first and foremost, lock that credit. It's super easy. You just do a Google search, how to freeze my child's credit. You go on all 3 of the credit bureaus to do it. It's very quick. Then if you need to run your credit for a loan or a college admission or even a potential employment or employer, you can just unfreeze that credit with just a click. So that is the first thing I would say that parents need to do. So the second thing I would recommend doing is going to myssa.gov, and that is mysocialsecurityadministration.gov. So we often don't think about Social Security as it pertains to our children. We think about it as, we age, we get older, we want to use that Social Security that's out there. But what myssa.gov will do is it allows you to create an account for anyone. So I could go in and create, I only have nieces and nephews, so I can go in with my sister and I can create an account for my nephew. And what that's going to show me is if anyone is using his Social Security number anywhere. So it'll show if there's being money put into Social Security, money being drawn. It's going to show me if there's an employer utilizing that. It's really powerful, right? It's a quick health check.
So just to interrupt, so anybody can go in?
Yeah. Anybody can do that. You have to obviously have their Social Security number and create that account. So typically what we recommend is for parents to create those accounts for their children under their information. But we even recommend this for, you have aging parents. It definitely helps because just like our youngest populations are very susceptible to these threats, so are our older populations. Everyone really is, but it's those people who aren't like us on our email 24/7, on our phones all the time, living online. We want to protect both people. So like for my parents, I'll go and create these SSA.gov accounts for them. the next thing, once you kind of get through all that big federal stuff that we worry about, what we also want to look at is your home network. What is your Wi-Fi password? Don't tell us right now. We don't want that. But what is your Wi-Fi password? Who has that password? Did your provider set it up for you? I have a friend who always gives us a hard time. So the first week that we had our Wi-Fi at our house, Comcast came out and they set that password for us. And it was our address, which not a great secure password, right? So if I think about it, most of our neighborhood has Comcast internet, so I could probably go house by house and sign on to their Wi-Fi network. So he always gives me a hard time. So our Wi-Fi network is making fun of him, essentially. But, whatever maybe. But think about something that is something that only your family will know. And think about how you want to share that password. Does everyone who comes to your house really need your Wi-Fi password? Probably not. They have a 4G or 5G signal. They can use your cell phones. Because just by getting on a network, there's a lot of information that's there. You don't want another person leaning into your network, gathering data from your cell phones. You might make purchases from home, or you might put in your social security number if you're creating a myssa.gov account. You don't want anyone else living in your house that doesn't actually live there. The same thing is true for your Wi-Fi. Lastly, if you don't have parental controls set up on your Wi-Fi, that's something you're certainly going to want to do. Every internet service provider, no matter who they are, has the ability for you to turn on parental controls. And parental controls function a little bit differently with each different internet service provider. But generally what they do is they allow you to potentially block certain harmful content on your Wi-Fi. It allows you to turn on and off the Wi-Fi for your children where they need a password to access it at certain times. Perfect example. Your children need sleep. At the Hudson School District, we believe that they should come to school slept. They should come to school rested. Please, please, please keep them off the internet. There's nothing good that happens on the internet between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. There's just nothing that they need in that time. We need them to be sleeping. So shut off that Wi-Fi. Turn off their data on their cell phones. Store those cell phones and Chromebooks and you name it in the kitchen or in your bedroom. They don't need those when they're sleeping. So those parental controls can help with that. But also you can just take those devices away so that then you can send your kids to school well rested.
You've talked about some things on safety, but as a parent, what other things should I be thinking about in keeping my kids safe?
So we could probably talk about this for days. And I anticipate that we'll probably be talking about this again in future podcasts because there's just so much here. It's not like when I was growing up where the biggest threat was someone walking down the street and talking to me. We talked all the time about stranger danger as they are right in front of you. But this is a whole different world now as far as privacy. So we're going to start by just talking about privacy at a high level. We live in a world where everything is online. What we like, where we go, who our family is, what our dog's name is. I'd recommend looking into the settings on both yours and your children's social media. Social media is kind of like that privacy place that we always start with because it's so easy. Most people are surprised to see that by default, your profiles are public and anyone on the internet can see and reach out to you or your children. That's just the default that just exists.
So you've talked a lot about safety. You've gotten us started on safety. There's all kinds of things that we hear in the news every day: hacking, ransomware, identity theft, fraud, phishing, cyber predators, all that stuff. How about we just start with hacking?
Perfect. So hacking is probably like the most general term that we use in this field and across the universe to talk about what happens when something goes wrong, right? When a bad act, that's what we call them. Instead of calling them hackers, they're just bad actors, right? They're pretending to be you. They're pretending to be someone else. They're misrepresenting themselves. So let's just start there. I like where you're headed. So hacking is a huge issue if you don't take reasonable protections. There are two main things you can do to protect yourself. And by proxy, this applies to anyone else in your life, right? Your parents, your children, your neighbor. The goal of all of this information is that by protecting yourself, then you can communicate that information to all of those other people. They can protect themselves. then they can protect someone else. And essentially, it's just like you want to outrun the bear. You want to be a little bit faster than the person behind you. That's what we want to do. Hackers and bad actors are inherently lazy. If we make it really easy for them to get to our information, we are the perfect target. But if we put any semblance of safeguards in place, they're going to just be like, oh, I don't have time for this. And they're going to move on to the next person. That's the goal. And if we in Hudson are all safe together and we all know these strategies and we've implemented them, we're safer as a community as well. So, like I said, there are two main things that you can do to protect yourself and those people around you. First, strong passwords. I know this is annoying and I know passwords are lame and we hate them, but it matters. Use spaces, right? Like, don't do the same thing you always done. Like, my dog's name is Evie. You're not going to find her name in any of my passwords. My passwords are passphrases. They're things that resonate with me, right? They're memories in my head. They're things that my nephew might have said, or they're things that like only exist in my mind. It's not something you can find on the internet. None of that.
Wait. Are you telling me when I'm on Facebook, I shouldn't put all like my grandmother's, when they have those little shout outs?
Tracy, we've talked about this before. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that stuff where you get that survey and it asks you about where you lived as a child and your first car. Nobody needs that information because those things are security questions. But if you have a good passphrase that lives in your mind, that's going to be a good start. And I'll tell you, put spaces in. You don't need all this extra hoopla like the $sign instead of the S and whatever. Bad actors cannot figure out spaces. They aren't logical. They don't align to algorithms. Like, use a space. Make it something that's reasonable to you. But also, please, for the sake of all good things, make different passwords for different sites. Think about it this way, right? Like, we don't want all of the houses in our neighborhoods to have all the same house keys, right? If someone is going to rob one house in the neighborhood, in our perfect world, we would like them to just rob one house. We don't want them to rob anyone, but in the perfect world, just rob that one house. But if we have the same key for every single house in our neighborhood, they're just going to go house to house to house to house to house. And that's catastrophic, right? So stop the bleeding. Don't let them go anywhere else. So having that strong password, using spaces like a passphrase, and use different passwords on different sites. Second, and most importantly, so we've already talked, if you hear anything, hear this. Well, I'm going to keep adding to that. So hear this. Most importantly, turn on multi-factor, or sometimes we call it two-step authentication on all of your accounts. Yep, you heard me. All. All means all. That way, someone needs your password and that second factor. What's a second factor? Second factor could be something like a text message or a code or a physical key, you name it. It's just like what we do with our bank accounts, right? Like, it's just built in. Every single account that you have that's a good account where they take reasonable security has two-factor. You have to turn it on, but it's worth it. That way, someone needs your password, which is complex with spaces, like a passphrase, and a second factor. A good login is something that you know and something that you have, like that text message or a physical key. To answer the other part of your question, like, how big is this issue? It can be catastrophic, right? If we don't take those reasonable precautions, it can be catastrophic. If someone gets into your account, whether it's social media, banking, email, or otherwise, they can do so much damage to a reputation, relationships, and even your financial status. So do yourself a favor and take the time to stop those bad actors in their tracks by having those complex passwords and setting up multi-factor or two-step authentication. And one thing to know with all of this, like at the school district, we want to help you. We want to help you. You call us anytime. We'll help you set up any of this stuff. We're happy to help.
So one of the things that students are very involved in is social media. What suggestions do you have in monitoring, keeping kids safe, all of the things, the challenges that come up with social media?
So this is such a huge topic, and I know for sure that we're going to start to dig into this a little bit deeper as time goes on. But just at a high level, if unwatched, social media can be a huge problem. Even as adults, sometimes we forget that what happens online stays online, even if we delete it, right? That midnight post when you're super frustrated about something that happened during the day, even if you take it down, it can still be found. Social media can be filled with so much joy, our puppy pictures, funny memes, you name it. But it's also so much easier to say something behind a screen than it is to say something to someone personally. So my recommendation is not super tech-based, right? It's talk to your kids about social media. Have those conversations. Make this a regular part of your life. Don't just talk to them about how they use social media. Talk to them about how you use social media. Have you ever considered asking your kids how they feel about what you post online? Do they give you permission to post that silly picture or that weird story? Because that does stay online. Many families, when we ask this question, are super surprised to get the response. We're seeing students these days start to have more of this, like they're leaning into privacy. They're starting to our generation, I would say, has really leaned into technology and social media because when I was in college, Facebook came out and you had to be a college student to have Facebook. So that's the world that I've known online. But our students have lived in this space forever. Their entire life has been built around this social presence in person and online. And they're starting to pull back a little bit and want less online. So they're telling their parents, don't post that. That's embarrassing. No, I don't want that on social media. I don't care who sees it. And what we're also seeing is in that addition to just, what I post online or what my parents post online, is that our employers, whether it's today or in the future, are really interested in our social media presence because, like I said before, it's a lot easier to be someone very different online. And what we're seeing is that as people get new jobs, these employers are checking social media. There are even tools that do this for almost free. You click a button, you put in someone's name, and they can get the full rundown of all of their social media, no matter how private you make it. With all that being said, the conversations that you have with your children matter. Talk to them about what is happening online and definitely partner with your child's school if something comes up or is going on online. We want to make sure that you can partner with us. But lastly, your child must be over 13 to be on any social media site. It's actually a federal law. Most people don't know this, but that's a thing. If they're on social media and they're under 13, they probably provided a birthday that is not the one that you recall as being their actual birthday. So just a couple of things around social media. Again, that first thing is to just have that conversation with your child. Make this normal. Try not to make it a one and done. And think long term, right? Like something that feels really cool as a sophomore in high school or eighth grader is certainly not as cool as I'm sitting here at the ripe age of 39. It's just not nearly as cool. So that would be my recommendation around social media, is just to talk about it.
Thank you for all of that information. And I know we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and there's lots of conversations ahead. So are there resources you want to leave folks with today?
Absolutely. So the problem with this question is that the resources are abundant. There are way too many resources about parenting what we call digital natives, students who have lived in a digital world their whole life. But there are three I'm going to recommend. The first one is my personal favorite, Common Sense Media. If you have not checked out Common Sense Media, there's an entire platform for families. And it's not only like ratings of TV shows, video games, websites, but it's also like how to parent and how to have these conversations, sentence starters, discussion questions, you name it. The second resource is something that we've actually purchased in the Hudson School District. We worked with the Spark and Stitch Institute, Erin Walsh, and she's created this course that's about parenting and the world of technology and mental health and all of that good stuff. And we've actually purchased that for all of our 6th grade and our 9th grade families. But if you're a family that doesn't live in either of those two buckets, you can just give us a call at the school district and we'll make sure that you get access. It's a powerful course that you can use that really is self-paced, so you can do it on your own time. And then the Department of Public Instruction also has a course out there online that we'll put in the resources here that you can actually do with your child. So that's something that you can certainly look at. Those are the big 3 resources that I would recommend you looking at.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being with us today. And I hope for our families this provides some good conversation at the dinner table, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I would be very curious to hear at least what the answer to that question is about you posting about your children online.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. We had a webinar last year that was a really big hit with our families. There will be more to come. We're really excited about it. So keep watching your email. You'll hear from us soon.
We have a lot more conversations ahead on all things technology. You can find the Hudson School District Podcast Library on our website, hudsonraiders.org, under the Families tab. If you have questions, send an email to connections@hudsonraiders.org.